Michael Gray is here with us. Michael Gray, we heard him originally speak a couple of months ago at Vicky's meeting. Michael is a one-man army fighting the opioid scourge in America. 2 years ago, Michael lost his beloved daughter, Amanda, accidentally to a deadly dose of fentanyl, and he founded the Actus Foundation to seek solutions for the opioid crisis in America, including federal legislation to stop China's importation of deadly fentanyl into the U.S. Please join me in welcoming Michael Gray to the Queensborough.
Well, good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight. I'm going to spend a little time here talking about the specific problem of this fentanyl scourge, right? So we're advocating against this new and deadly paradigm. We're going to talk about that word paradigm quite a lot. I'm going to dovetail into many of the things Lieutenant Walker said, but I'm going to share some different ideas as well. Okay, so what is the Actus Foundation? Well, let me tell you a little story. About a little over 2 years ago now, on January 7th of 2018, I was sitting with my wife at the Rutgers Athletic Center, the RAC, in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I'm a major fan of wrestling. My whole family loves wrestling. We were watching the Ohio State Buckeyes wrestle the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers, and it was a great match. And I have these beautiful season tickets, and I sat there and I thought about my life, how my daughter, who had mental health problems, was just coming out of a psychiatric facility and things were going really well for her. We'd been struggling for 5 years with a borderline personality disorder. My son had just been concussed a week earlier, but he just got cleared by the doctor, and he was ready to take his position as the captain of the Hunter College wrestling team. And I had my beautiful wife settling into this empty nester situation that we had, watching the Buckeyes and the Scarlet Knights wrestle, and I thought to myself, wow, life is perfect. This couldn't be better. Everything was going right to plan. 5 days later at 6:19 p.m., January 11, 2018, we got the call. The call nobody ever wants to get. We were invited into a club whose membership no one wants. Our daughter was killed by a lethal dose of fentanyl at 6:19 p.m. on January 18th. So, next slide. So we started to think, what are we going to do about this? I'm sorry, you go back to that last one. What are we going to do about this? Where do we go? We didn't understand what happened. My daughter wasn't a drug addict. She wasn't a drug user. We didn't know what in the world to think of this. This was like a car accident. We had no preparation. Where do we go? What do we do? Well, what do? You pick yourself up. The next day, we're at a funeral home preparing a funeral for this beautiful sorority girl. Go on our website and see the pictures of her at the March for Life. She was in a pro-life sorority. This was her life, her dedication. What the heck happened? We didn't know. We tried to understand. We tried to get into it and start figuring out. And what we found out was fentanyl. What we found out was our daughter, as a mental health patient and trying to self-medicate, found something on the street that she thought was one thing, it was another, and it killed her. So she joins the ranks, right? 70,000, that's a joke. That's not a true number. The number is at least 100,000. It's totally underreported. Go out where I go to forensic labs all over the country. Believe me, this is a terribly underreported number. It's 100,000. And they're all young people. Beautiful lives. And the increase, which I'm going to show you in a minute, the increase are kids that don't have to be dying. And we can start to get our arms around this. We absolutely can if we commit to it. And I'm going to show you what. So let's talk about how dangerous stuff is. Next slide. So look at these three stories. They all have something in common. You can go through three. There's some animation. Look at all those three stories have in common. In Pittsburgh, in Berks County, Pennsylvania, and my dear friend Dr. Nahi Ortiz in Franklin County, Columbus, Ohio. Cocaine. Hello, cocaine. All the cocaine in America is now totally compromised. Cocaine? Why? Isn't that the fun drug, the simple drug? Oh, that's the safe drug, right? No way. All three of these rashes of overdose from cocaine. Overdose from cocaine? Nobody overdoses from cocaine. Oh, when it's got with fentanyl, you do. Then you die. This is how dangerous this stuff is. It's finding its way into places it never did before. So I'm going to start to get into this paradigm, and I want you to think about something. We had a certain way that you died from opioids. You got addicted to opioids. You used more and more over time. And then one day you used too much and you died. Right? That's how it was. And I'm going to show you how consistent that death was. And how well we understood it, best we could. But then something changed. All of a sudden, you didn't have to take too much anymore. All of a sudden, you were getting killed from the outside by things like cocaine, Percocet pills, Vicodin pills, Xanax pills. They're not even opioids. How's all that happening? Let's talk about it. Next slide. So we'll talk about a little bit of who I am. You can see my background here. I have a background in scientific instrumentation. That's what I've done my whole life. I've sold all kinds of scientific instruments. I've developed scientific instruments. That's what I do. We developed drug detection systems many years ago. And, but my most important qualification, next slide, is this last one, losing my daughter to fentanyl, right? But anyway, I have quite a background to talk about this stuff, so I engage in it, and I do. We started a foundation 2 years ago called the Actus Foundation. It's a 501c3 not-for-profit, and all my pamphlets are on the tables. Please take them with you. It's very disheartening. We go through great expense to print these things, and to see people toss them aside is really, really discouraging. Please take them. Please read them. Please understand what we're doing as a foundation. Okay, there's a card in there for what we're doing legislatively. Call, call, call. Call your congressman, call your senator. Make sure action gets taken on these bills. We just had one passed. The president signed into law a week ago Thursday, our temporary scheduling order, our emergency scheduling order. So we're making progress, but we need more help. Okay, next. So, what is Amanda? What was she? Who was she? Amanda was a mental health patient. You can just click through the couple of animation. She suffered from borderline personality disorder. She began abusing her benzodiazepine prescriptions a little bit in 2015. Through 2017 into 2018, she was abusing her benzodiazepine. We tried to get her some help with that. We did. And then somewhere in late 2017, somebody put the bug in her ear that opioids are the best way to do what she used to like to call turning off her brain. So she dabbled with it a little bit. How many times she used, we don't know. She bought it maybe 10 or 12 times. We think she was getting up the nerve. Whether that was the first time she used, maybe the second or third time, we don't know. What we do know is the fentanyl got her, and it was straight fentanyl with no opioid, no natural opiate whatsoever. What was in that bag would have killed 6 horses. Okay, next. Nope, I got animation, so you might have to just click through a couple of them. Okay, great. Fentanyl changed everything. Go right on to the next one. Would you look at? Okay, I want to talk about this. This is my message. If I really had to put it in a nutshell, here it is. We entered a new paradigm, a paradigm shift. Thomas Kuhn, okay? The Structure of Scientific Revolutions talks about a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift in science is when something has changed the conditions of your experiment that A, B, and C don't yield result D anymore. And you don't know why. And you have to find out what has changed in your experimental process. Something changed in our drug problem in 2013. It was called synthetic opioid. It virtually didn't exist in 2012, and it was all over us in 2013, and the death toll is continuing to rise. And with all due respect to all the agencies that will say it's going down, it's not going down. What's going down is death because of Narcan. Narcan doesn't save life, it defers death. We're only borrowing those deaths into the future. We are not acting in a new paradigm, so we're not changing anything. We have to start thinking differently about the new paradigm. Let's talk about paradigm. Next one. Let's talk about paradigm. So if I knew, this is a great paradigm example, and at the same time an example of what the drug crisis, how it changed with opioids synthetic opioids in 2013. There's a person called, a creature called the black widow spider. She builds a web. If you go in that dark corner where she is and you get yourself caught in that web, right? You're going to try to get away, and then she's going to pull you back in, and that web's going to keep turning and spinning and bringing you back in. You're going to try to get away. Sooner or later, you're going to get bound up enough. When the black widow hiding up there in the corner realizes you're really stuck, out she comes and she kills you. Flip. The next one is the wolf spider. He doesn't make a web at all. He sits in the same dark corner, but when you're walking out in the middle of the room, he runs out and kills you. Okay, so if I was trying to control spiders, and all I understood was spider webs and how they operate and how they make webs, I would be hopeless to do anything about wolf spider because he operates under a different paradigm. You get it? Paradigm. But it's actually a great analogy for drugs because this web is how heroin causes death. I got to go fooling with that stuff and fooling with it and fooling with it till one day I get an addiction and I can't get away from it. And I try to get away and I pull away. And then I get pulled back in. We call this recovery relapse, recovery relapse, recovery relapse, right? Addicts spend 15, 20, 25, 50 times in recovery before they finally overdose and die. Not so with fentanyl. Not so. How about one and done? ONDCP, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, well, we're very closely with, they're preparing They're preparing right now an ad campaign called the One and Done campaign. That's how many people are dying from their first time trying drugs. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about definitions and distinctions. What does the word heroin mean? Who knows? Can anybody tell me what the word heroin means? Hello? Anybody? What does the word mean? It means hero, right? It does. That's where it comes from. Did we know this? Yes? Hero. It was originally German heroin, which came through French heroin, and it became Anglicized into heroin. Wow. Why do we use that word? Well, let's see why. Next. Okay. It's the brand name for beer's diacetylmorphine. It's diacetylmorphine. Extracted in 1874, patented in 1897 under the German name, brand name, Heroish. Why? Because you got pain, you can still go to work. You're a hero. It's the brand name. Okay. Great for pain and coughs. Slightly stronger than most other medicinal morphines. Same addicting effects. Next. So, here's the problem though. That name becomes synonymous with Hollywood and the dirty alley and the rubber band around the arm, greasy army jacket, derelict lifestyle. That's not the case anymore. First of all, what's so bad about heroin? Why is it so bad? I don't think it's so bad. Why is it illegal? Doesn't need to be. Doesn't need to be at all. We serve up stronger things than diacetylmorphine in hospitals all the time. Why? Because we're so stuck in the word. Because that word heroin is attached to this poor old diacetylmorphine, which is probably a pretty good drug. But it got abused. So let's go to the next slide, because here's the point. Why I talk about these definitions and arbitrary distinctions, okay? We have to understand that it's not about a word. Heroin is just some drug. It's just some chemical. It's the behavior behind it that we're worried about. Next slide. Okay, so these definitions and arbitrary distinctions. Let's cut through a couple of these. Okay. For purposes of non-regulated use, all opioids are what we call pharmacologically mu opioid receptor agonists, right? I tend to touch that a little bit. So what is that? That means that my mu receptors in my brain are stimulated, dopamine is released, and I feel good, right? Diacetylmorphine does this to me at a rate that nothing in nature can. Nothing in nature can give me the thrill. Nothing can give me half the thrill that this can. Okay, it's a mu receptor agonist. All of them are. All of them, whatever we call it. It doesn't matter what the word is. All of those drugs are mu receptor agonists. Right? And naloxone is an antagonist. That's why it reverses the action. Next slide. Or next one. Okay. So, used regularly for abuse, this is opioid abuse. Opioid addiction. It doesn't matter how I take it. Snorting, smoking, shooting. It doesn't matter. I am an opioid addict. Right? And so one of the things that happened in this country was we kept thinking heroin with the old Hollywood model. And we were ignoring the fact that our good middle-class kids, who we know would never be in an alley with a rubber band around their arm, were snorting heroin because it looked like cocaine. Just some harmless white powder. Most of the time they didn't know what they were doing. Enough to get an addiction. Next. Okay, next one. So the problem we're going to have now is this. You've got about 6.5 million pill addicts in America. They got addicted innocently through prescriptions, through dumb stuff. They didn't know what they were doing. Okay? Now we're starting to pull all those pills back in. We're starting to scrutinize prescription practices. We're starting to shut down the pill mills. We got task forces going all over the place trying to stop this stuff. And it's a good thing we're doing that, right? We should. The problem is when we pull all those pills away, those pill addicts are going to turn somewhere. And where are they going to turn? To the street. And what's on the street? Heroin. Diacetylmorphine. Now it's fentanyl. It's even worse. That's why they're dying. They turn to the street and they look for their pill. They're used to taking Vicodin and Percocet. This stuff is very weak compared to diacetylmorphine and fentanyl. But they're going to turn to the street and they're going to use whatever's available because their mu receptors need the attachment. They can't help it. They have no control. So they'll do it. And when they do it, they're going to run into something that's 1,000 times more potent than what they used to take it, and boom, they're going to get killed. It's happening over and over and over again. Next. Okay, go through this one. So I want to talk a little about business conditions. Fentanyl is ready to take over this business altogether. So what I said, we got all these people who have a mu receptor opioid agonist attached addiction. And this is a big problem in America. And there's a long story, and I can tell the long story. When I have more time, I'll tell the long story of how heroin got cinched from coming out of the Middle East. The Mexicans started making it. The Mexican heroin was very, very high potency. Okay? And now this high potency stuff hit the market. Everybody needed higher potency. What was the answer? Chinese woke up one day and said, the answer is fentanyl. The Americans need fentanyl. Their heroin's high strength. Everybody needs high strength heroin. We're just going to start pumping fentanyl into that market. And there's a reason why they did it in 2013. It's a long explanation I can tell you if you ask me offline. Okay, next one. So this is what I really want to talk about. All of this I'm building up to is why fentanyl exploded in and what it did. Here is overdose death 1979 to 2015 in America. Assembled by a guy by the name of Donald Burke at the University of Pittsburgh. Okay, I watched Dr. Burke deliver a talk on this in 2016. He had data through 2015, and this is what he showed as a death curve. Now, those of you who work in science like I do would notice something very interesting about that line. It's linearity, right? A linear line. For every move I make in X, the move goes in Y. Boom, 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 boom. We call that a linear curve. When Dr. Burke looked at this, he said, holy smokes. I've got millions and millions and millions and millions of data points of 35 years, and look at that linearity. He couldn't help himself. He's a professor. So he put a logarithmic smoothing to the line, and guess what he found? 0.97% linearity. So he said, logically, as a professor would, a statistician, he said, boy, what's going to happen in the next few years? I can tell you. You know what you do? What do you think you do? Just scratch the line out further. Why? If I've got millions of data points absorbed over 3.5 decades and it's that linear, it's going to stay linear. Every kind of change, social problem, it's all absorbed in that line. It's all there already. Things are going to change, but this thing is so overwhelmingly linear that I just say it's going to stay linear. Next. Okay, so what he did was he projected out. And he said, what's going to happen over the next 5 years? So I got to show you these two little lines up here, right? So the yellow line is what he was predicting, because it's just going to stay linear, and he's going to carry it that way. But that other line is what? It's what actually happened. Why was he so wrong? Oh my goodness, what happened? And I listened to him in 2015, and he said, what do you think is going to happen in 2025? And he showed that line that I showed, the straight out line that was off by like 30%. And he said, I'll give you 2-to-1 odds. I'll give you 3-to-1 odds that's what's going to happen. This is a guy, public policy professor, very famous. Right. Why was he so wrong? Why? Because I bet if I were to challenge him, and I hope I never have to meet him because I trash him out in all these talks, but if I were to meet him and he were to say to me, no, hold on, Michael, you're being unfair. I said 2-to-1 odds, 3-to-1 odds, unless the paradigm changes. Hold on. Well, the paradigm changed. And I'm sure he would tell me that's the reason he was so wrong. Because the paradigm changed. We're in this new paradigm of synthetic opioid. It's totally different. It kills actively. And it's going out and killing into new populations that weren't dying all those years. You see, the beauty of linearity is it was predictable, understandable, controllable. We knew how to deal with it. But look what's happening now, and we're not stopping it. We're not even getting in the way of it. We're not even slowing it down. It's continuing to take our young more and more. Why? Because fentanyl is taking over more of the market. Why? Let's talk about that. Next. Let's skip through these next couple. Oh, wait. I want to stop on this one. Sorry, right there. This is the same slide you showed. What I like to show about that is if you look at this curve and you look at the fentanyl line, that's the one that goes like this. You can't miss it, right? The one that's really, really linear, that gray line, those are your semi-synthetics. Those are all your pills, the Vicodins and the Percocets and all that, right? That was the dominating death for so many decades, and look at its linearity. It was absorbing all those other curves and making everything look linear until fentanyl changed it all. That's what happened. This is the most important piece of data you can ever see on the opioid crisis right here. That tells the whole story. Fentanyl. So let's talk about where it's going to go from here. I think I've got to skip a couple slides, Lieutenant, if you don't mind. Just keep going. It goes through a bunch of these. Okay, so here's my prediction. See where, this is what Dr. Burke said, this is what's actually happening, those two little lines down there. And I'm saying if we don't stop this thing, and fentanyl completely takes over the market, I say 315,000 a year will die in 2025. And I have a mathematical reason for doing that. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, I'm saying that's what could happen, very, very realistically, if we don't stop this fentanyl train. Why is it a train? Why is it so exciting? Why is it moving like it is? Let's talk about it. Go ahead. Okay, fentanyl changes everything. Why? Because fentanyl is, you can click through these, fentanyl is easier to make and acquire than other opioids. It's easier to ship and smuggle than other opioids. It's significantly more profitable than other opioids. wow, it's far more potent than other opioids. That's what makes it so great for the dealer. I think a lot of you may have seen the 3 jars, right? This is heroin, diacetylmorphine, fentanyl and carfentanyl, and analgesic doses of the 3, okay? Let's go on again. Okay, it's a little bit hard to mix. This is the problem. So the next question I like to ask people is, why is fentanyl so bad? Have we all heard of fentanyl before tonight? Yes. Yes, everybody? And everybody knows it's really bad, right? I don't think it's so bad. When I had my surgery on my neck a couple years ago, it was really good. Yeah. Right? Why is it so bad? What makes it so bad? It's power, right? Lieutenant said it. What is 50 times, 100 times, 1,000 times? Carfentanyl, 10,000 times. It's much more powerful. That's bad, right? Why? It's bad because you got to mix it. It's bad because the potency is actually good to a doctor. In hospitals, they like the potency. And they like the half-life. It's another thing they like. But when you put it with a drug dealer on the street, he can't mix it well. Next, let's go on to the next slide. Well, this is a really good one, but I'm going to have to skip through it. Let me just go through it briefly. This is why fentanyl is going to take over the market. And I'm going to tell you on a business case, okay? I tried to figure out a business case to something in my career where something was so superior of a product as fentanyl is to heroin for the drug dealer, right? I said, easier to ship and smuggle, easier to carry, much stronger, much easier to mix, right? It's much, much better as a product for the drug dealer. Only problem is it kills people. But for them, that's no big deal. Okay? They don't care for that. Okay. So when I look at tube TVs and flat panels, right? This is my business case to show you why I think fentanyl is going to keep taking over until it completely displaces heroin, diacetylmorphine, so it doesn't exist anymore. So we talk about tube TVs, flat panels, right? Everybody here had a tube TV once in your life? Sure. Right? And then you got the flat panel, right? Why? This is better. This was better in every way. It was 1,000 times better. That's why you got it. I tracked that date. I was in the semiconductor business in those days. It took 15 years from the first emitters hitting the market to where we saw the flat panel take over tube sales, tube TVs and sales. Why? Why did it take 15 years? Because the tube was so much cheaper. And so what happened is, as the flat panel came in as a superior product, the tube TV tried to hang on, so they reduced their price and reduced their price. They couldn't take any more cost out. They've been around for 60 years. All the costs have been worked out already. The flat panel, however, is new. It's high-tech. It's going down and down and down in cost. The poor tube guy is trying to keep up. Drop his price, drop his price. Can't take any more cost out. He just takes lower margin. One day, in 2007, look at that data. He couldn't do it anymore. And he quit. And the tube TV went poof to the Ashburn history. And look what the flat panel did. Right? That's the data. That's the actual data. I follow it. This is my own data. I followed it in those days. Okay? So what am I telling you? My business case is a vastly superior product trying to displace an older product. The older product holding on by dropping price because it's all it's got. And it makes this dynamic take a few years to happen. But sooner or later you can't stop it. Right? Next. So let's go. I'll just go through these. In 07 it happened. That was the big, I call it the 2007 moment. Right? While it was sudden to most of you, for me, I've been tracking it for 10, 12 years. I knew it was coming. Okay, next. Okay, it's a case study in a legacy supply stream holding on in the face of a vastly superior product. Next, the displacement occurred because the flat panel display is so vastly superior. Next one is it took 15 years because the tube had been around for 50 years. And why don't you just go away? Business people, they own companies, they held on. They fought, they dropped the price. Next, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so there's the first part of that curve. You see what happened. As the flat panel came up, the CRT went down in almost perfect one-to-one fashion until the crossover point, right? But there are two interesting things that happen from here. Next. Two interesting things that happen. Number one, this is the line for the tube. It didn't tail away. It just disappeared. Why? It had nothing to offer anymore. All it ever had was price. Now it's got nothing to offer. Okay, next slide. So, look at this. The CRT and the FPD, and on the other side now, we'll see heroin and fentanyl. It's the exact same story. Synthetic product versus natural product. Poppy farm. Military loves burning poppy farms. DEA loves catching poppy farms. Okay, then I got to extract the stuff. Good extractors, bad extractors. How was the weather? How was the poppy? What was my yield? Then I got to step the stuff. I got to step the stuff and step the stuff. I got all these drug gangs I got to pass it through. By the time it's the street, who knows what it is? If it's any good. Synthetic opioid, fentanyl, I make it in the lab with a roof over my head. Nobody can see what I'm doing. Simple precursor chemicals. I mix them together. I set them at a certain temperature and pressure. And voila, I got fentanyl. All I want. Who in the world would sell heroin when they could sell fentanyl? You crazy? And it takes a heroin half the size of observe what I can do with a little brick of fentanyl. What are you, crazy? Why? Let's go to the next one. Okay. Why? What's the problem with it? Is that it's deadly, right? Darn. It was almost perfect. But I'm killing people. Oh well. Good drug dealer, do I care? Here's why it's so deadly though. The super strength makes it very hard to control. Super strength is good for doctors and hospitals and pharmaceutical companies. Very bad for drug dealers and drug users without any controlled conditions, right? Blending powders homogeneously, which is what we're trying to do here. I got baby formula over here, and I got heroin or fentanyl over here, and I'm trying to mix them up. It's really hard. Pharma says it's the hardest thing they do. Dry powder blending, that's a word you should all remember, dry powder blending. That's the process of mixing drugs. Okay? We don't do chemical reactions. There's nothing to help me with the mix. I've got to get so many particles into so many particles, and I've got to do it homogeneously. In other words, good statistical mixing. I'm hopeless to do it with a bullet blender. On the right here, you'll see the fancy millions of dollars of equipment I always sold the pharma industry to do their mixing. You think the drug dealer has that? Got a bullet blender for 25 bucks. Hopeless. So every batch they mix, something's going to kill somebody. Every single batch. They can't control the potency. Right? Next. Here's a little graphic. So here's what we call in the pharma industry excipient. This would be your cutting agent, your baby formula. In the middle is active pharmaceutical ingredient. This is called the pharma. Drug world, we call that the drug, the heroin, the fentanyl, whatever. And then mix it. And here's your final mix on the right side. And that's about how they're going to get it. This is actually a reasonably good graphical representation. I put a lot of care into putting the dots. This is about how it's going to work out. And we do a lot of dry powder blending in our seminars that we do for law enforcement to show them how stupid this pill making is, okay? That's about right. So now you go scoop it up and you start making beans out of this stuff, right? Beans, capsules, okay? You scoop it up and there you go, oh, that stuff's no good. It's all green. There's nothing. That's just baby formula. Next one. Well, maybe there's a dot of red in there, but it still ain't very good. Next one. And I'm starting to feel some kind of buzz. Next one. Hey, there's the sweet one. Everybody else dies. Oh well. That's the reality of mixing fentanyl. That's the reality. So another word I'd like to teach you all is therapeutic index. Therapeutic index is the difference between effectiveness of a drug, in other words, getting the medical effect you want, and lethal overdose. That difference is called the therapeutic index. For heroin, it's from the floor to the ceiling, and in fentanyl, it's here. It's unforgiving. And unless I have those millions of dollars worth of Fourier transform infrared spectrometers on my mixing chambers in a pharma company, I'm trying to do it with a bullet blender, you can forget it. So that's why it's so dangerous. Okay, next. Okay, so once again, fentanyl changes everything. Here we go. Why fentanyl? It's easier to make and ship, all that other stuff. Next one, yep, kills its customers, right? Kills its customers too fast, that's the problem. Next. Okay? Downside of fentanyl isn't really a downside at all, it's just another upside. Next, nothing promotes a street drug faster than death of a user, especially one like my daughter was an addict. My daughter was what we call hot shot, she was killed on purpose. Why? Because in the warped world of drug dealing, people want the strongest stuff they can get, and when they saw a poor girl like Amanda, who they knew wasn't an addict, and she died, all the addicts said, ooh, she died, it'll be good for me. That's the reality of fentanyl, folks. That's the reality of the stuff. I think we're about time now, so I'll kind of cut it there. I hope that was a good enough message. There's a whole lot more to say about where we got to go and some solutions that what we can do is stop it. Maybe in a Q&A if you want to ask some questions. But I hope I wanted to give you the message about what this stuff is, why it's so dangerous, and how it's taking over the market, and it's only begun. So please, read our pamphlets, stay with our legislation, call your reps and senators, make them act. Okay? They want to listen, by the way. They want to. And by the way, I've got a lot of Democratic friends in this. We can make them listen. Okay? This is not a partisan issue. The Republicans tend to be our friends. There's no part about it. But we got to win those Dems too. They can't want this to happen. Okay? Thank you so much.